Good morning from Southern Arizona. It is 8:30. We're on snow day. That's why I look like this, because this is post snow romp. I moved the big TV out of the studio into the house again for the kids, because now they're playing some video games together. I haven't brushed my hair. It's a mess, but look. So I decided I made those 2 pairs of fingerless gloves. And I decided to just use every last bit of that color combo because it works so nicely. And one of the things I do wear here is neck warmers. So I did a very tight one with this I-cord bind off, this applied I-cord bind off edging. I loved it. I'd watched a Stephen West video. I'd always done the slip Passover one. I didn't like that. This one was so easy. It just flew together and it's super stretchy and I love it. And I absolutely yarn chickened to the end. I had to weave in some ends to get little chunks to do magic knotting and then just kind of sew in the last few stitches. It was god awful. But this is for me, so who cares? And I bet even if I gifted it, somebody would be like, oh, that's gorgeous, and maybe not even notice. That's the blind in me. They'd notice. I can notice, they'd notice. But anyway, for me, it's lovely. So that worked really well. I could wear it the other direction too. It's tighter around my neck. Because like I said, that's the thing that I have that I actually wear in the colder weather. I wear that one. I slept in this one last night because it works well with this little outfit and this little sweater I did. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones because I can loop it around like a denim shirt or something. And then I have this a skein of hand wound yarn. And so that one can get tight or be long. So that's what I really use. So I've decided, oh my God, I don't know if I can add in pictures. Can I flip the camera? Maybe I should flip the camera. Here, we'll walk outside of my yarn room and we'll flip the camera. If I can. Now see, I thought I've done this before. Yeah, see, there you go. See, snow day. Snow day. It was so lovely. And then back into the yarn closet. This is all going to donation. It's such a lovelier space now that I've gotten rid of a bunch of stuff. Whoop, see, stuff. Yeah, this is all going to donation. I put that up there because now with the big TV in the playroom, it doesn't work. And there's my lovely, I found out this, I looked it up. This is not expensive. It was like $68. Now it doesn't work great. And I definitely need to rewind these. Now the thicker yarns wind not quite as tight, but still I think it's where it should be winding each skein twice, which is kind of annoying, but here's the deal. It's saving my neck, shoulder. So whatever, who cares? And this is the other thing that I use the most in winter here. Because it keeps my hands warm, but I can still phone. And then if it's really cold, I just tuck my thumbs in. Everybody thinks it's funny. And they're like, well, why don't you make the top? And yet, because I don't want to. This is just easier. My daughter sometimes wears them with gloves underneath. But I have decided over the next couple of months to just make a lot of smaller projects. Where the finishing, where I just feel like the finishing is nice. Oh, that's a line from my blocking, because that's how I blocked it. I wanted the look of some texture without actually squooshing it in. And you got to trust the process, because as I was knitting it, it was quite tight, and I thought, oh, but you've got to trust the process, because the blocking was totally key. Um, and I'm going to put this one on. I hope my aunt, I gave her something. I hope she moved it in from the cold. There have been so many things that I've thought about chatting about on here, and I'm going to make more of an effort to chat with everyone. I'd love to grow the subscribers and really get back to that place. As I'm fine-tuning my knitting, and there might be some more talk of the blindness with the knitting. And you'll just have to, if you want me. Because that's been more of a thing in my life, and I've seen more recently how that overlaps into the ableism movement for disabled people, how that can kind of overlap into a movement for elderly people in our community. And most of us my age are starting to deal with, or dealing with quite heavily, older parents. And I think I have some words of wisdom on that. Because here's the deal. So I had to take a social media break. I was finding myself, due to stress, like getting in the reels and like doom scrolling too much. But also, like a couple of the chat things, apps are set up in such a way that with the accessibility software that I use, and with the accessibility options on your phone, it's very confusing. So they don't necessarily thread together very nicely. So it's you got to kind of figure it out. And if you've got your text blown up so big, which by the way, iPhone specifically will do updates and stuff, and all of a sudden I've got text in my accessibility made much larger than yours, and all of a sudden it's smaller. They changed those parameters. I don't know why. And then it's less functional, but it still blows out of proportion how things are on your page. It's very hard because when they're smaller, you can see the little different colors very easily, the little boxes of text and stuff. When it's really large and it's like filling up the whole thing, you don't really get that delineation. It's very confusing. It's exhausting. And guess what? It's already exhausting being a disabled person trying to I combat my way through my disability. I woman my way through my disability in trying to shoulder all of the burden of it, and not make other people uncomfortable by it. And so the bottom line is, it may be the easiest app and option for you, but if you want to connect with me, it's not always the easiest option, especially if I'm doing it later in the evening when my eyes kind of have so much. They're like a man in his daily words. He's got X amount of words. When they're done, he's done talking. My eyes have X amount of energy for the day. When I've used it up, I'm pretty much shot for the rest of the evening. So I can only crochet or knit if I can do it completely by feel. I'm putting together a dinner perhaps that's already pre-made and ready to go. So I'm not having to think or see or function at an extra difficult level. So I'm maybe not going to be able to do WhatsApp in the evening because it's disjointed because of the largeness I need. Or if I try to do it in small, so I can kind of try to see the words connecting to the blocks, the way that it talks to me is disjointed also. So I'm sorry I can't function in your world, but if you want me in your life, then you're going to have to maybe come at me a different direction. Emails are easier. Regular texting is easier. Regular DMs are easier, Instagram or Facebook. So it just is. And I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying this is my experience. This morning, going out and doing all the snow stuff with my daughter, it's only 8:30. We got to get out there early because we could be, snowless by 2 o'clock. And she doesn't have the childhood stamina for in the snow like I did. Or equipment, even though she's got a lot more wool and stuff she can wear and put on. But it was hard for me because the snow pulls all of the sound. So as I'm walking with her, and if she's not walking slightly in front of me, I can't tell exactly where she is. I can't hear where the dog is at all. That was freaking me out to no end. And I didn't initially recognize, I was like, why is my anxiety peaking? Because I couldn't hear, which also meant if I can't hear my daughter and I can't hear the dog, I can't hear the coyote, I can't hear the deer, I can't hear the javelina, I can't hear the bobcat, I can't hear the skunks. These are all things that are in our yard, on our property, on a daily basis. So it's just my life. It's what it is. And I think that we oftentimes don't realize when we jump into this place with our elder parents, because we still see them as relatively functional. They're living their own lives. They're paying their bills, driving their cars, feeding themselves. But that new medical diagnosis, those 2 new doctors, that one new facility they've got to go to for different kinds of treatment might just be the tipping point in their balance of their life. Because we don't really realize how much extra effort they have going on to deal with just functioning in their life. A lot of elderly people should have hearing aids and don't, because they've learned how to function around it. They've maybe tried 1 or 2 and they don't like them, or they're too expensive. Many elderly people do not get diagnosed as legally blind, even though they are. The majority of the optometrists and ophthalmologists out there are not designed to diagnose this. You have to go to, in most instances, retinal specialists or low vision specialists. And many of the eye doctors will say there's no point after the age of 65 in diagnosing them as legally blind, because many of them aren't driving anymore anyway. There's limited additional services that they could get because of it. I mean, you don't get anything because you're legally blind. Some people who are legally blind enough can get disability payments through Social Security, but you have to be legally blind enough. Some people, because there's low vision, and then there's legally blind, and there's a whole spectrum. It's a spectrum, people, and you got to be right in the right little niche to get that benefit. Some people on pensions, if they were diagnosed as legally blind, could get maybe a disability bump on that pension. But many of the practitioners aren't trained in that specialty, don't feel that it's even a necessity for the elderly if they're already getting driven places and whatever. That's really kind of the thing that people think about in blindness, and there's so much more to it. I've contacted every place I get a bill from. If their bill setup isn't conducive to what I do with magnification and audio speech, some companies will send you large print stuff. I get some of my stuff in large 8.5 or 11 by 17 papers. But here's the thing, you've got to be willing to advocate for yourself, and it's tough. And I think that we don't slow down enough in this day-to-day world to do a lot of the advocating for ourselves. I mean, look at me trying to find the new and the best and the next to make my experience better. And the bottom line is there's certain yarns that I feel more easily. If it's too thin, I can't really feel it and discern the stitches well. If it's too thick, I can't really feel it and discern the stitches. I'm a chunky 2 to a light 5, maybe. You know, I'm really a 3 and a 4. That's my window. And you're going to say, but you can take a bunch of those 1s and double them up, and that can be equivalent to a 4. Yeah, yes and no. In the actual knitting, it can be equivalent, but in the feeling of the stitches, it's more confusing, which is why I've gotten rid of a lot of my stuff. And I'm okay with that now. It's taken this whole long time. It's taken the last 9 months and the loss that I've had in that 9 months to realize that I just need to focus on and keep focusing on what I can do visually with my body as the aches and pains grow and change with age, and stress and how that impacts us, and just thinning things out and getting rid of a couple of chairs, a few end tables, some knickknacks, fake plants that I love for color and to delineate corners for me, but well, the cats eat them, so time to let that go and start walking a little further away from that area. I'm just so happy. It doesn't quite make sense. I'm just so happy right now. And reminding myself of that. And reminding myself of the freedoms that I do have in my life and the opportunities and the blessings. Like today, I had a whole thing with my dad's and my son, but it's a snow day. So we pushed it back to tomorrow, and that's okay. And if nothing else, it's actually not just okay, but good. Because my son doesn't need to learn how to drive on snow today. He doesn't even have his license. He won't have that for another few weeks. He's still just permitting. You know, we don't need to always be pushing. It's okay to have acceptance. And it's okay to know that the friendship of ourself, by ourself, is the most important thing. If somebody else doesn't understand it and it offends them, if I'm just putting it out there and there's no negative intent, I'm sorry. You know, we need to let other people sit with their stuff too. And it's okay. Like I tell my son, you don't always have to put all your energy into masking in social situations. If you're uncomfortable in a conversation and you just have no response, it's okay to sit in that moment of uncomfortable, even if other people feel it too. That's totally fine. How are people going to learn about new and different things if we don't allow that time and that space? I feel so nice with my freezing toe cold footsies in my wool socks and all my lovely warmness here in my cold room with no heater on. And the snow out the window. I mean, I feel like I should feel in a January. And it gives me energy. The cold gives me energy like nothing else. I love it. I want to be out there cross-country skiing. I love having big warm boots and all the layers and stuff. I love it. I loved the winter activities so much more than the summer ones. Even though I could get just as much of a sunburn in the winter. And even though the snow shine was really hard on my ocular albinism, I just love the crispy cold. So That's my joyful day today. And I had a phone update, changed the color of a bunch of my apps, but whatever. I'm learning to roll with that a little bit better. And got a new app, Journal, and I journaled today. And I'm going to try to keep journaling this year with that app and see if that helps. My mom said a thing when I was a kid, which always stopped me from journaling. If you write it down, people can read it. Yeah, they can. But if you write it down, you can read it. And if you write it down, you have added a physical component to that thought. And sometimes through the writing of it and the physicality of it, you can release it. You can let it go. So I have apologized to my younger self, and I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that this year, because physically writing is a bit more of a challenge to me because I write over things a lot. I'm going to do the app one and see if that has a similar reaction, and I'm going to keep trying it. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. I'm just going to move to the next thing. So look with your heart, not your eyes.